Joshua chapter 10. And as Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, heard that Joshua took Ai and utterly destroyed it, in which manner he did to Jericho and her king, and thus they did also to Ai and her king, and that the ones dwelling in Gibeon deserted to Joshua and to Israel, and were in the midst of them, that they feared among themselves exceedingly, for he knew that Gibeon was a great city, as also one of the mother cities of the kings, for it was great over Ai, and all its men were strong. And Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, sent to Holam, king of Hebron, and to Piram, king of Jarmuth, and to Japhia, king of Lachish, and to Deber, king of Eglon, saying, Come, ascend to me, and help me, and we shall wage war against Gibeon, for it deserted to Joshua and to the sons of Israel. And they gathered and ascended, the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, and the king of Hebron, and the king of Jarmuth, and the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon, they and all their people. And they besieged Gibeon, and attempted to capture it. And the ones dwelling in Gibeon sent to Joshua into the camp of Israel in Gilgal, saying, Do not loosen your hands from your servants. Ascend to us quickly, and rescue us, and help us. For all the kings of the Amorites are gathering against us, the ones dwelling in the mountainous area. And Joshua ascended from out of Gilgal, he and every warrior with him, all mighty in strength. And the Lord said to Joshua, Do not fear them, for into your hands I have delivered them. There shall not stand even one of them before you. And when Joshua came upon them suddenly, for the entire night he was gone from out of Gilgal, that the Lord startled them from in front of Israel, and the Lord defeated them with a great defeat in Gibeon. And they pursued them by the way, ascending to Bethhoron, and slew them unto Azekah, and unto Makkedah. But in their fleeing from in front of the sons of Israel at the descent of Bethhoron, that the Lord cast upon them stones of hail from out of the heaven unto Azekah. And there were more dying by the stones of hail than which were killed by the sons of Israel by sword in the battle. Then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day God delivered up the Amorites under the hand of the sons of Israel. And Joshua said, Let the sun stand over Gibeon, and the moon over the ravine of Ajalon. And the sun and the moon stood in position until God repulsed their enemies. Is this not written in the scroll of the upright? And the sun stood in the midst of the heaven. It did not go forth into descent for the completion of one day. And there was not such a day, nor former, nor latter, so as for God to heed the voice of man, because the Lord joined in war with Israel. And Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, to the camp in Gilgal. And these 5 kings fled and hid in the cave in Makkedah. And it was reported to Joshua, saying, The 5 kings have been found, hiding in the cave in Makkedah. And Joshua said, Roll great stones upon the mouth of the cave, and place upon them men to guard them. But you do not stand off pursuing after your enemies, but overtake their rear guard, and do not let them enter into their cities. For the Lord our God delivered them into our hands. And it came to pass, as Joshua rested, and the son of Israel, in beating them with an exceedingly great slaughter, even unto completion, that the ones surviving were delivered from them, and entered into the fortified cities. And all the people returned to Joshua in Makkedah, in the camp, in health. And not one of the sons of Israel growled with his tongue. And Joshua said, Open the cave, and lead out to me these 5 kings from out of the cave. And they did thus, and led to him these 5 kings from out of the cave, the king of Jerusalem, and the king of Hebron, and the king of Jarmuth, and the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. And when they led them to Joshua, then Joshua called together every man of Israel, saying to them, and the ones commencing the war going with him, saying to them, Go forth, and place your feet upon their necks. And coming forward, they placed their feet upon their necks. And Joshua said to them, You should not fear them, nor be timid. Be manly and be strong, for thus the Lord shall do to all your enemies whom you make war against them. And after this, Joshua killed them, and put them to death, and hung them upon 5 trees. And they were hanging upon the trees until evening. And it came to pass, towards the descent of the sun, and Joshua gave charge, and they lowered them from the trees, and they tossed them into the cave, into which they took refuge there. And they rolled great stones upon the cave, which remains until the day today. And Joshua took Makkedah in that day, and slaughtered it by the mouth of the blade, and the king. And they utterly destroyed them, and everyone breathing that was in it. And there was not left behind in it any one surviving. And they did to the king of Makkedah, in which manner they did to the king of Jericho. And Joshua went forth, and all Israel with him, from out of Makkedah unto Libnah, and they assaulted against Libnah. And the Lord delivered it also into the hand of Israel. And they took it, and its king, and they slaughtered it by the mouth of the blade, and every one breathing that was in it. There was not left behind in her, not even one surviving and having escaped. And they did to its king in which manner they did to the king of Jericho. And Joshua went forth, and all Israel with him from out of Libnah unto Lachish, and besieged it, and assaulted it. And the Lord delivered Lachish into the hands of Israel. And he took it on the 2nd day, and he slaughtered it by the mouth of the blade, and utterly destroyed it, in which manner he did to Libnah. Then Horam, king of Gezer, ascended to help Lachish, and Joshua struck him by the mouth of the blade, and his people, until there was not being left behind of them one being delivered and escaping. And Joshua went forth, and all Israel with him, from out of Lachish unto Eglon, and he besieged it, and captured it. And the Lord delivered it into the hand of Israel. And he took it in that day, and slaughtered it by the mouth of the blade, and every one breathing in it. In that day they slaughtered in which manner they did to Lachish. And Joshua went forth, and all Israel with him, from Eglon unto Hebron, and they besieged it, and they overtook it, and struck it by the mouth of the blade, and its king, and all its villages, and every one breathing, as many as was in it. There was not one surviving. In which manner they did to Eglon, even they utterly destroyed it, and all breathing as was in it. And Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, to Debir, and they besieged it, and they took it, and its king, and all her towns. And they struck it by the mouth of the blade, and utterly destroyed it, and every one breathing in it. And they did not leave behind one surviving. In which manner they did to Hebron, so also they did to Debir, and to its king, just as he did to Libnah and to its king. And Joshua struck all the land of the mountainous area, and the Negev, and the plain, and Asadoth, and all its kings. They did not leave behind in it one being delivered. And everyone breathing life they utterly destroyed, in which manner the Lord God of Israel gave charge. And Joshua killed them from Kadesh Barnea unto Gaza, all the land of Goshen unto Gibeon. And all these kings and their land Joshua took at once, for the Lord God of Israel joined in war with Israel. And Joshua returned to Gilgal.